Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome back. Missed everybody. It was nice having a couple weeks off, but I was ready to get back to school and see y'all. So we're going to pick up where we left off. We were working on the periodic table. Here's a list of ICANNs that we need to be able to do by the end of this unit. As usual, I'll remind you, pause it whenever you want to. I want to get the video as short as I can, and then you get a whole class period to do a 9 or 10 minute video. Pause it if you want to take some time and read these over, but each slide will clearly define or show which ICANN we're talking about and address it then. Number one on your periodic table notes, assignment number 3. Number 1 asks you what are the 3 classes of elements. So be careful as we're going through here because there are classes of elements, and then there will be families. There are classes, here's classes, and then there will be families, and you got to make sure that you know classes are metal, nonmetal, and metalloid. The classes, 3 classes are metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. Remember that you've colored in a periodic table. It will be handy to get that out. The one that you labeled before our break, we watched the video where you labeled all sorts of fun stuff on the periodic table, and you put that dark black line in there that separates the metals and nonmetals. So find that, pause the video, get that out because you'll need it to work your way through here. Number 1, again, the 3 classes of elements. All elements will fit into one of 3 groups. There either be metals, nonmetals in the blue, or metalloids in the green. You've already colored in your periodic tables, so you don't need to do this, but remember that we had this stair-step line that divided the metals again from the nonmetals, and along that line are the metalloids. And if you start in this corner, even if you get a periodic table without one, if you start in this corner and just go down, over, down, over, down, over, down, over, down, you can tell where they are. The first 2 are on the right-hand side of that black line, and then you see from there down, it splits it right here. On both sides of that black line are a metalloid. Both sides of that black line is a metalloid. Both sides of that black line is a metalloid. So the first one is to the right of that black line. The second one is to the right of that black line. Then it splits it, splits it, splits it. So now you can, we can work together to classify the following. I think you should pause the video, answer this the best that you can, and then come back and see if you were right. So Na is here. That is clearly a metal. Remember, it's not as good for you just to write down what I say and get to the end and don't know what's going on. There's going to be tests and quizzes. These are basic questions. You've got to be able to do this. Pause the video. Don't just write down what I'm saying. Classify these 6 things, then turn the video back on. So I'm going to assume that you've already done that. Na is here, metal. Depending on which way you want to go, we'll go across. Beryllium is here, metal. It's to the left. Wedding ring goes on your left hand. Metals are on the left-hand side of this line that could be here. So Be is a non-metal. Cobalt is right here, non-metal. Chlorine is over here. That's in the metal area. Bromine is over here to the right of that line that goes down through here. Bromine is a non-metal, and Kr is right here, also non-metal. Just to review, there's nothing to write on your paper for this, but just to review what you have on that periodic table that you got out that you've already colored and labeled. Groups with the letter G. Groups go up and down. Remember that groups, if you can picture that G tail going up and down, go that way. And periods, if you can exaggerate that P, periods go horizontally across the periodic table. Those are periods, and we number them starting here. Number 1 for the groups, group 2, group 3 is all this, and going down the right, we number them. This is period 1, period 2, periods go across, period 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is period 7 going across down here. Part of what you'll have to do at the end of this video is you'll be given elements like this one right here, and it says what period group is this element in? Period 5, P5, group 2, period 5, group 2. Okay, so that was a quick review of periods and groups. Groups go up and down, look at that G, and periods go horizontally. Periods go this way. All right, cool. You've already numbered those. So we haven't talked about this. What are the properties? What distinguishes a metal from a non-metal, from a metalloid? Metals have these things in common. Metals have these things in common. They are good conductors. Think of a pan. If you're trying to remember the properties of a metal, think of a pan at home. Pans are good conductors of heat and electricity because they're made of metal. They're metals. That's why we use them as pans. They're malleable and ductile. If you hit a piece of metal, generally speaking, in your experience, if you hit a piece of metal with a hammer, would it bend or shatter? You could probably picture it bending. If you hit a car fender with your fist, is it going to dent or is it going to shatter? And then the third property of metals is that they generally are shiny. Our fancy science word for that is luster. They have high luster. And down below here is those definitions for basic property words. Malleable and ductile in general means that they bend, and brittle in general means that something breaks. If you know the 3 properties of a metal, then you know the 3 properties of a non-metal, because it's just the opposite. Non-metals are poor conductors. They're brittle. If you hit a coffee cup, a porcelain coffee cup, or a glass with a hammer, is it going to shatter or is it going to bend? And same thing with the properties. With the shininess, it's the opposite. Non-metals are dull, metals are shiny. And metalloids or semiconductors have properties of both. They could be a poor conductor, and shiny. That would be a property of a non-metal and a property of a metal, making it a metalloid. They're kind of in between. They're in that line, the transition between metals and non-metals. They have properties of both. Remember, I may be going fast, but you can pause the video and fill in what you need to there. You will need to be able to classify elements given a property. If I say something is a substance is a good conductor and is shiny, what class of element is it? And that's what you're going to do in your lab that we'll talk about probably on Monday. Your pre-lab will probably be tomorrow. You need to be able to classify, investigate the properties of materials and classify them as metal, non-metal, or metalloids based on their properties. So you have to know this stuff. Next, we're going to talk about families. And remember, I've already said it, remember that you've got to be able to distinguish between a family and a class. A family and a class. We've just been talking about classes of elements. Those are metal, non-metal, and metalloid. Those are classes. Families are in these groups, these vertical columns on the periodic table. One of the reasons why we call them families is because they have similar properties, similar characteristics. They are families of elements. Even if you're not biologically related to your family, if you have lived with them most of your life, you probably have similar characteristics, similar likes, similar dislikes, etc. So that's one of the reasons why we refer to these as families. These vertical groups are families. The first 2 groups on the periodic table, group 1 and group 2, have special names. They're the alkali metals and the alkaline metals. The last 2 columns or groups on the periodic table have special names. They are the halogens for group 17 and the noble gases for group 18. Remember that group 18 are very unreactive. The word from the book is inert, INERT. RT, meaning that they do not react. They're very happy. They're or happy, whichever, being completely unbonded to anything else. Their nobility, they're noble, they're fine being alone. They don't react with things. They're inert. So that's the first two had special names, alkali, alkaline. The last two columns on the periodic table have special names, halogens, noble gases. We also had a special name for this middle section, the section that's down low. We've got this bunch up high and this bunch that stick up high. These are referred to as the main group elements, and that's what we're mostly concerned with your freshman year, is these main group elements. These transition metals here and down here are called the transition metals, groups 3 through 12. That's what we're going to call them, transition metals, and we're not going to worry much about them this year. You'll find out more about them in chemistry later. Some other names of families are not as much families as the rest of them, because if you notice here going down the family, we've got a yellow square, which makes it a nonmetal. We've got two metalloids and two metals in this family. So these aren't as similar as the other ones, but we're still going to call them, just so we've got something to refer to them as, the group on the periodic table with boron at the top, we're going to call the boron family. The one with carbon at the top, we're going to call the carbon family. The one with nitrogen at the top, we're going to call the nitrogen family. The one with oxygen at the top, we're going to call the oxygen family. So now take a minute, pause the video, and try to determine the family of elements for these particular elements. And I'm going to assume that you've already stopped the video and have done the family. And now I'm going to tell you that sodium is here. That is the alkali metal family. Beryllium is here. That is the alkaline metal family. Cobalt is here. Transition metal. Chlorine is here. Halogen. Bromine is here. Also halogen. And radon, I think I changed your note guide to be Kr, but it doesn't matter. Radon's down here, and it is a what is that? Noble gas. So that's a noble gas, this group 18. So whichever one you had on your paper, I think I changed it. I just didn't change it on the screen here. And I think we are done with that. I think we're done with that. And what you have now is some practice. I think what you have now is some practice for that stuff that we just went over. Yes, so what you should have now is, I want to point out that this assignment should be completed today. That's what it says on your paper, should be completed today. This is for people that were absent, people who have special education programs, people who just work slower or need more time. You have until Monday the 7th, but a typical student who applies themselves during class today should easily get this done today. You have until 1/7. After that, it will be late, and I will be contacting parents for all missing assignments. I'm not waiting till you're failing. I'm not waiting for excuses. As soon as it's not turned in, I am contacting parents or guardians, whoever you live with. Okay, that's it for this video. Let me shut this baby down. Good luck. Come see me if you have questions, and show me these papers when you're done.